Well, for more on the impact of Title 42, let me turn to Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. She's an immigration attorney as well as the president of the board of VECINA, an immigration advocacy organization. Kate, much of Alistair's piece focused on the situation for migrants that are stuck on the Mexican side of the border. As you know, thousands have also crossed the U.S. side, and many are in El Paso. What is this Supreme Court decision in regards to Title 42 mean for those who are now in El Paso?
You know, this is a really devastating situation, and I think Alistair's reporting on this is really strong to be able to see the impact of a decision like this on a group of migrants, many of whom are deserving of asylum under our asylum laws. People who are fleeing political persecution in Venezuela would generally qualify for asylum. I think the thing to keep in mind is that we've had a functioning system for processing and screening asylum seekers in our country for decades. And that system was shut off under Title 42 at the start of the pandemic. Well, now we have other ways of responding to COVID. We have vaccines. The pandemic has ended in a certain set, in a certain perspective. And so leaving Title 42 in place to enforce a border policy is not a long-term solution, and the Supreme Court meddling in it, I'm sure we'll talk about all of this. What it does, the impact of it is it creates chaos for people who are stuck outside the border. Now, people who have already been processed in and they are legitimate asylum seekers and they're awaiting their court hearing, they're not going to be impacted by Title 42, but the violence and the chaos at the border will continue because of this policy.
And you say this policy is not a good solution. It's not a permanent, lasting solution. So what should the solution be, Kate?
Sure, we had a great system. Now, it was imperfect. It needed to be fixed in certain areas. But what we had in place was a system where any asylum seeker could come to our border and say, I'm afraid of persecution. And they would go through a credible fear interview where they'd tell their story to an asylum officer. If they didn't qualify for asylum, and many didn't, they would be deported and sent back to their country. But if they did qualify, they would be screened in and released and allowed to prepare for their asylum hearing. And what that did was it gave legitimate asylum seekers an opportunity to come to the border and apply for asylum. And it gave asylum seekers who didn't qualify the sense that their case had been heard and screened. And so after going through that process, many of them would make alternate plans for their lives. What Title 42 does is it just completely shuts off the border, and if someone comes in, they get immediately sent back to Mexico, where many of them are facing danger and kidnapping. In the organization that I work with, almost half of the migrants who get sent back to Mexico are kidnapped by the cartels. The numbers are that high. So when you have these migrants who have not been screened, they have not been given a chance to apply for asylum, and they're sent back to a dangerous situation, what do you think will happen? They're going to come back tomorrow and try again. So
well, let me interrupt you and tell you what as you know, the Republicans are very much against open borders. In fact, they say removing or getting rid of Title 42 is going to cause huge security concerns and open a floodgate to even more people surging on the border. So what do you tell these red states?
Well, I would argue that Title 42, it's the opposite of what they're saying. Title 42 creates higher numbers because people come back and try again. And if we create a screening mechanism for asylum seekers, then that is not open borders. That is limiting the people who come in to people who legitimately could qualify. And then, of course, I would argue on a broader perspective, if we really want to calm down what's happening at the border, we need to be honest with ourselves about the needs of our U.S. economy for immigrant labor and get Congress to finally pass immigration reform that reflects the actual needs of immigrant labor in the United States so that there is a legal way for low, medium, and high-skilled workers to come here. Now, that's a separate issue from asylum, but it does contribute to the situation at the border.
All right, Kate Goldfinch, thank you so much.